in 1999, like in, I think it was the end of October of 1999, I had decided that perhaps it was time for me to take an antidepressant, because for most of my life, even as a child, I was always depressed, and I'd been through like 10 years of therapy, and you know, it didn't seem to help. So through my psychotherapist, who I had finished seeing, I was hooked up with a psychopharmacologist to get some antidepressants. And after a couple of trial and errors with like Prozac, which I didn't like, I was put on an antidepressant called Celexa. And that started my whole strange journey that lasted from 99, October 99 to April of 2001. And the way it started was, started really slowly, you know, building up the dose. Started with like 5 milligrams, and the first effects of it were that it was kind of like giddiness. It was like being high, you know, like giggling, and almost like being stoned, like if you had smoked pot. So it was, you know, it was really nice.
Sounds good.
Well, it was good, it was great. And that was only 5 milligrams, so I was building up to, supposed to be building up to taking like 40 milligrams a day. And what this stuff is, and what it does, is that if you have a chemical, what is it? It's something like the chemicals in your body don't really release enough serotonin. So every time the serotonin is released into your brain, there's this little gland or something that's sucking it all back up. So antidepressants like Prozac and Selexa, which is in the Prozac family, they're called serotonin uptake inhibitors. So it just allows the serotonin to do what it does. It goes into your brain, and then you feel really good. You feel all warm and fuzzy and kind of blissed out, and life is good. And so I stayed, you know, slowly, like built up 5 milligrams a month until I got up to eventually 60 milligrams. And I'll get into why that happened. But when I first started on this Celexa, I noticed that I was sleeping a lot. And I, you know, talked to the doctor about it, and she just said that was something that would pass. So it would stop. The excessive sleeping would stop, and then at that point, as my body adjusted, I increased the dose, because as I said, I was working up 5 milligrams at a time up to 60 milligrams of Selexa per day. And the reason I felt that an antidepressant would help me was because I felt, well, the funny thing is, my depression caused me to sleep a lot. So I wasn't getting things done. And the whole point of taking this was so I could be more productive and prolific in my life. So, so I'm like waiting for this to happen. All that really was happening was that I was feeling really good, and feeling like I wanted to sleep, and I still wasn't doing anything, you know, that I wanted to be doing or thought I should be doing.
And what did you want to be doing?
I wanted to be more productive, creatively more productive. And that just wasn't happening. It was like I was becoming more and more content with just being a little worker bee. Like, I would do really well. I'd go to work. I wasn't sleepy at work. It never happened. I mean, I worked on a lot of really big projects during this period of time, a lot of feature films, and I would go to work, and I'd be very pleasant. Well, except for I could think of one job where things weren't very pleasant. But anyway, but most of the time was, you know, I just had this energy and this kind of like zen, like, you know, go through the day, do your work, go home, and then I would go to sleep. But what would happen would be, like, if I was working on a job Monday through Friday, let's say, on the weekends, I slept a lot, like the whole day, like 12, 14 hours. I mean, not all at one time. Maybe I'd, you know, sleep like 9 hours, get up, walk the dog. Of course, the dog always has to get walked. Come back home, go back to sleep. Oh, I'm just gonna take a nap. Well, 5 hours later, I'd wake up. You know, and then, all right, I'll go walk the dog again. And sometimes, the only other, I'll tell you, this all just became about taking Celexa. It just all became about pleasure. And, you know, these, whatever was like giving me pleasure or would give me a lot of pleasure, it wasn't, but it was like outside, like influences, like food, sex, and shopping. Shopping was another thing. So I would go to work and I'd shop, I'd eat, and I was I started seeing, well, I was seeing someone that didn't work out, and then I started seeing someone else, and that lasted through the whole Selexa period, right up until when I got off the Selexa, even though that relationship wasn't good for me at all. I didn't notice it because I was on this like medication, drug, if you will, that just kept me like really blissed out all the time. So nothing really bothered me. I wasn't bothered by the fact that, like, let's say that person who was in my life wasn't very good for me. I couldn't see that. I also wasn't aware of the fact that, let's say, the industry, I wasn't aware of a lot of things, like the film business that I'm in, and that's my career. I think I wasn't aware of the fact of how, I don't know how to put it, let me think about that and get back to that. Well, besides my career, it was like my money. I wasn't paying attention to it at all. I was like, one credit card after another I could get. I was like totally maxing out my credit cards, thinking that, well, all right, I had been working a lot, so the money's always come in, it's going to keep coming in, and everything's going to be fine. So I didn't take care of myself in that respect, like when it was really busy. I didn't put money aside for when period, you know, like a slow period would happen, because I thought, being in this blissed out state, that everything was going to be fine. And then things weren't fine, because a year ago in like November or October of 2001, we had a very big slowdown in the film industry here in Boston. But I was on this antidepressant, so I was just thinking, oh, it's only going to last a couple months. And I kept thinking, oh yeah, well, it's going to get better. And it didn't. And by that point, I had taken an apartment by myself, which cost me almost $2,000 a month.
Wow.
But I was like totally blissed out. You know, it was the happy pill. I was just happy. I was thinking, okay,